defeating the Philadelphia Eagles 30-35. The Philadelphia Eagles, led by Jalen Hurts, led by that strong defense that we all expected to kind of torment the Kansas City Chiefs offensive line, but nonetheless, surprisingly so, they had 0 sacks on the day. That's what's quite shocking to me here, that the Philadelphia Eagles were not able to sack Patrick Mahomes one single time. We look through the game, just looking at the box score here, breaking it down real quick just to kind of refresh it in your minds. Kansas City Chiefs had 340 total yards of offense to the Philadelphia Eagles 417. Chiefs threw the ball for 182 yards. The Eagles threw for 302 yards. The Chiefs ran it for 158 rushing yards, while the Eagles only ran for 115. So just taking a look at that quick box score, that quick breakdown, what jumps out here is the Eagles, who really we kind of thought were going to be the less explosive offensive team here, had the most yards in this game and the most passing yards. You wouldn't have really expected that. Coming into this game, you'd have expected Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, team who throws the ball around the yard like crazy, to truly be dominating in the passing game. And that really was not the case here today, on Sunday. And then when it comes to running the ball, the Kansas City Chiefs, who barely ran the ball and couldn't get anything going against the Cincinnati Bengals in the running department, took it to the Philadelphia Eagles, who are one of the best defenses in the NFL, and ran it for 158 yards. I know a couple of those running plays came from big chunk plays, but they still got the yardage nonetheless. An average 6.4 yards per play. 21 first downs for the Chiefs, 25 first downs for the Eagles. Third down efficiency, the Eagles were much more efficient on third down. And on fourth downs, the Eagles went 2 for 2. Large part due to that little QB push, the QB sneak play that we talked about last week. But what really makes the difference in this game is going to be the penalties and fumbles. If you recall early on in this one, Jalen Hurts is in the back of the pocket kind of scrambling around, trying to make something happen, make something out of nothing. And the ball just slides right out of his hand, fumbles the ball, and allows the Kansas City Chiefs to get a scoop and score a touchdown. That really shifted the momentum in that one. You steal possession, steal a score nonetheless as well. It flips the game on its head, especially when you do it in the Super Bowl. But also penalties. We can't escape it. We can't get away from it. There was a rough holding call down there at the very end of this game. James Bradbury held, let's use held in loose terminology here, Juju Smith-Schuster, which basically iced the game, ended the game. Was that the right call? I don't think it was, because throughout this game, they were not throwing flags really at all. And whenever they did, they immediately picked them up and did not actually apply the foul. The game primarily was played letting the people play, letting it be a little handsy at times, and just letting things go. It's the Super Bowl. You don't want to see the refs be a part of the game. You know, an old adage I've heard about reffing quite a bit throughout my life is, as a referee, you want to be almost as non-existent as possible. You want to be unrememberable. You don't want to be memorable. You want to be forgotten, in a sense. And I know that sounds really bad. But if you're memorable, it means you did a really bad job. Either you threw too many flags or you didn't do enough. You'll be right there in that middle where no one really pays attention to you. And those are the best refs because they don't make it about themselves. They don't get involved in the game too much. And I know it's extremely tough to be an official. I'm not knocking the officials in this one. But that's one that you just cannot throw. That flag truly determined the outcome of this ball game and really shaped the rest of the game as well. It allowed the Kansas City Chiefs just to run out the clock, kick a field goal. I know you have to execute and make the field goal to win the game. But right there, that holding call is the difference between the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's say the Chiefs make the kick. The Philadelphia Eagles would still have the ball with about a minute 15 to minute 30 on the clock left, if I do remember correctly. And that's a big difference between that and 3 seconds or so, when all you can do is just throw a Hail Mary and hope for the best. When you have a minute 15 seconds, a minute 30 seconds, even 50 seconds, you can build a drive to a sense. You know, you can throw a deep shot to the sideline, get out of bounds, move up the field. I know you have to have a lot of things go right for you to get there, but at least you have the chance. And that's what we saw the Eagles kind of get ripped out of their hands. And we're going to kind of start diving into the analysis here. But Chiefs became the Super Bowl champions for the second time in 4 years, which is extremely impressive. Extremely, extremely impressive. The reason why Patrick Mahomes hasn't made the Super Bowl in a couple seasons has simply been because of Tom Brady and then Joe Burrow and the Bengals, who are going to be his biggest competition, I think, for the next 10 to 15 years. But nonetheless, Patrick Mahomes is special. And I think a lot of people forgot about how special Patrick Mahomes was. What's an odd thing that's happening right now is the Kansas City Chiefs players and fan base and team as a whole are acting like everybody counted them out and they were forgotten. I just want to throw it out there. You had the third best odds to win the Super Bowl at the beginning of the season. I know winning a Super Bowl is very hard. You're allowed to celebrate it, but I'm not really there for this underdog story or this underdog act. That might just be me, but I don't think it's just me. I think there's a lot of people out there feeling the same way currently. But nonetheless, you have to give massive props and respect to the Kansas City Chiefs and Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy, who's now making a lateral move to be the offensive coordinator for the Washington Commanders, which is extremely interesting. We'll be talking about that more later on in the show. A lot of coordinator movement after this game. But the Chiefs adjusted. The Chiefs came out in the second half and scored on every single possession they had the ball. Every possession. And that's what you need to do. You know, we talked about how the Eagles need to get stops. You need to get a couple. And they couldn't stop them in the second half. In the first half, Patrick Mahomes went 8 of 13. Second half, he went 13 of 14. In the first half, he threw for 89 yards. In the second half, he threw for 93 yards. His adjusted completion percentage. This is what true completion percentage should be. So I say when a wide receiver drops a pass, that is like, all right, that guy should obviously caught that ball. Or sometimes completion percentage is skewed because quarterbacks would throw the ball out of bounds instead of taking a sack. So that's what adjusted completion percentage is. And I look at that a lot to figure out how good a quarterback is. Because there are sometimes quarterbacks, especially in the collegiate level, that's where the adjusted completion percentage kind of began being a thing, is when guys are dropping passes that shouldn't be dropped. But Mahomes' adjusted completion percentage in the first half was 66.7%, so about 67%. In the second half, he was perfect. He had 100% adjusted completion percentage. PFF graded him out as a 69.7 in the first half and a 73.6 in the second. So a little bit of a jump there, and that's an overall grade on passing and making the correct play. If you miss a throw, if you should have thrown to somebody else, there's a whole bunch of things that tie into that PFF grade, Pro Football Focus, and they do a great job. And really, in this Patrick Mahomes-led offense, the biggest difference and realization was from watching film. The Kansas City Chiefs, you should be saying thank you right now to Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson, former Philadelphia Eagles head coach, current head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, a Super Bowl champion coach. He exploited the Philadelphia Eagles this season by running a lot of motion. The Eagles like to run a lot of man in the red zone. When you run man, they're, especially with motion, the Eagles look to pass off players. They're going to switch, similar to basketball. You know, if someone's coming in to set a screen on you, you're going to switch. If you're running a motion offense and you're running man-to-man, sometimes you're going to pass a player off. But the difference is what the Kansas City Chiefs did was they would take their wide receivers and they would move them just enough where the Eagles would start to recognize the motion and the Eagles would start to pass them off. And then as soon as the Eagles passed them off, the Chiefs would realize it and they would snap the ball. So once that motion happened, there was confusion, but that player for the Chiefs, who was just in motion, would then immediately take off and run his traditional route away from the inside player who's picking him up. So the motion would start from the outside and in. So you'd start out wide, you'd come into the inside, the outside defender, outside cornerback, in 95% of the cases, would pass them off to the slots corner, the slot safety, the nickel corner, who would have to pick them up. And they just caused little miscommunications, little mismatches, and that's all they did in this game. It was nothing fancy. It was nothing flashy. And they saw Doug Peterson do it very well earlier on this season when the Jaguars played the Eagles and really gave them a hard time with it. And I think that's really what made the difference. We saw the Kadarius Toney touchdown. We saw the Sky Moore touchdown. The two exact same plays. One ran to the right, one ran to the left. Same thing. Outside receiver works in, runs a little zig route. A zig route, for those of you guys who don't know, is like 2 steps inside, and then you're just turning and running up and diagonal away. You're running up and away, or you're out and out. One of the two. And in the red zone, you're normally running it up and out, so you can get to the corner of the end zone by the pylons. And when that happened, there were no defensive backs within a 5 to 10 foot radius of both of these guys when they had their touchdowns. Simply because the Chiefs recognized at halftime and before during film that the Eagles were still continually passing off players in this man coverage system in the red zone. So they just took what the Eagles gave them and beat them with it. And unfortunately, the Eagles defensive coordinator did not adjust. It could have been a simple fix. He could have eventually found a way and just changed up. You could have just simply ran zone down there. You could have done something a little bit different. You could have not passed off. But the Eagles have seen it work all year long, and they're just going to continue to do it. And we saw them pay the price, unfortunately. Say Jonathan Gannon. Jonathan Gannon, man. If you're an Eagles fan, I don't want to be saying like blame Jonathan Gannon, but simple adjustments got you beat. Simple adjustments got you beat. The Kansas City Chiefs just outcoached the Eagles, and that's all they did. They outcoached them. Lou Anarumo, one of their best defensive coordinators in the NFL. Why is he the best D coordinator in the NFL, in my personal opinion? Because of his ability to adjust in the second half. And that's what this league is. That's why we saw Jeff Saturday struggle so much early on this year, giving up big leads in the second half because he wasn't used to trying to adjust in the second half. But I'm not saying that was a Jeff Saturday issue. He's just the head coach. But they were a very inexperienced coaching staff, if you paid attention to the Indianapolis Colts this year, where they got beat in the second half quite a bit. And that's what happened here with Jonathan Gannon, who is now the Arizona Cardinals head coach. And if you're Shane Steichen, hats off to you. You came up with a really good game plan. You ran Jalen Hurts a ton. He set the most rushing attempts, rushing yards, yards after contact, first down conversions, touchdown conversions, yards for yardage runs of 10 yards or more, and first down and touchdown conversion. He set records in this one as a mobile quarterback. But on the defensive side of things for the Kansas City Chiefs, we talked about the Kansas City Chiefs not being a great defense. They stepped up to an extent. It sounds crazy for me to say they stepped up, but they let up 35 points. But they did enough. And sometimes in the NFL, that's all you have to do. The Philadelphia Eagles became the first team in NFL history to score 35 points in the Super Bowl and not win. But Chiefs linebacker Nick Bolton played 74 snaps, and he was always kind of around the ball. He always had a nose for where the play was going to be. 7 solo tackles, 2 tackle assists. It's very, very impressive. And nonetheless, he returns a 36-yard fumble for a touchdown. So you could argue defensive player of the game, honoree right there, simply because he returns a touchdown. But he also had a very good game outside of that. We also can't forget that this Philadelphia offensive line was spectacular in the passing game. Jalen Hurts only was pressured 3 times. Only was pressured 3 times, which is what allowed Jalen Hurts to throw for 304 yards. Coming into the game, if you remember from last week, we talked about how Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs were going to have to dominate in the air. And we said that the Eagles would like to get out ahead and run the ball. The Eagles got to run the ball, but eventually they had to start throwing to keep up with the Chiefs because they were being outscored in the second half. They had to throw it a lot. And I know a lot of Jalen Hurts' yardage passing came from the deep shots, but that's what the Jalen Hurts-led offense does. They run the ball and then they throw the deep ball and try and score big on those deep, big-time plays. And they did efficiently and effectively, but unfortunately they just couldn't get enough done. And a lot of you guys who pay attention to fantasy football, if you want to know, like, in comparison, how good of a performance Jalen Hurts had, he had 45.2 fantasy points. That's an incredible performance, an incredible individual effort. It just wasn't enough to get it done. The player who stands out most in my eyes, though, for the Chiefs is the man of the name Isaiah Pacheco, running back out of Rutgers, who has really taken the league by storm to a sense this year at the Chiefs. Isaiah Pacheco had 76 rushing yards and averaged 5 yards per carry on 15 carries. It's extremely impressive. His long was of 24, so it's not like he had one run that's really bolstering his stats here. But when you're able to run for nearly, take away your longest rush of 24 yards, you're nearly running the ball for 3.5 yards a carry. That is extremely effective. You run the ball for 3.5 yards every single play, you're going to score a touchdown every single time you get the football. And that speaks to how impressive he did against one of the best defensive lines in football and the best defensive in football when we talk about the Philadelphia Eagles. And then another player who had a monster performance is Travis Kelce. 6 catches, 6 targets, 81 yards, a touchdown. Travis Kelce showed up. Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, I hate saying this, but they will overtake Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski in postseason touchdowns. They will take over almost, just think about how much time they both have left in their careers. They very well could become the greatest quarterback and tight end duo in NFL history. They very well could be. It's crazy to say that after we've seen how good Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski are. But Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes very well can take over and be the greatest 1-2 punch we've ever seen in the NFL. Let alone quarterback, wide receiver, running back, whatever. Very well could be the greatest 1-2 punch in NFL history. And I know both these guys have some time left in their career. They're still both playing. No signs of them retiring anytime soon and slowing down. But they definitely have some room where they can continue to grow and get better as well, which is what's honestly so scary about them. But 2 guys for the Philadelphia Eagles you got to be happy about. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. A.J. Brown, a guy you just traded for this offseason. You didn't know what you're going to get out of him. You were hoping he'd establish himself as a number 1 and be really legit in the receiving game for you guys as a Philadelphia Eagles fan. A.J. Brown did that. A.J. Brown did a terrific job in the Super Bowl. Not only in the Super Bowl, but all season long. That trade was worth it all. You gave up an early draft pick for him and then some. And then you obviously paid the man. But it was all very much worth it. A.J. Brown showed up in this game. 6 catches, 96 yards. And a touchdown in the Super Bowl. Almost had a second touchdown later in that game. But he's gonna be Jalen Hurts' favorite deep threat for the coming future. And then you have Devontae Smith, former Heisman winner out of Alabama, an electric receiver who can get over the top and go deep, can work over the middle, and everything in between. He's going to be an electric and phenomenal receiver to watch. He's not the most athletic guy out there, but when he's out there and you watch him, if you break down his film, the guy just floats. He's just in and out of his cuts, in and out of his breaks, running his routes so perfect. There's just something about it. It's just out of this world almost. It looks effortless when he's doing it, and he is going to be a bright spot for the Philadelphia Eagles for quite some time to come. And obviously, we're going to have to shift gears a little bit from the game, but still sticking on these two teams here for the moment. The Kansas City Chiefs. Yes, they won the Super Bowl. And when you come with winning a Super Bowl, you wonder and you think you might lose something. Someone might leave. And unfortunately, the Kansas City Chiefs have lost their offensive coordinator, Eric Bieniemy. As I mentioned a moment ago, Eric Bieniemy is moving for a lateral move to the Washington Commanders as their offensive coordinator, which I think is extremely surprising, but I think that we can explain why he's doing it. Eric Bieniemy has been in several head coaching interviews over the last few years. And when he's in these interviews, he hasn't been getting a lot of love. He hasn't been hired for some reason. And I wonder if a lot of that reason, we hear a lot of whispers coming out maybe about the way he treats his players and things like that. But a lot of it, I wonder now that we see him made this move to the Washington Commanders is maybe it's more of an Andy Reid thing. Maybe people are discrediting Eric Bieniemy because of how good people think Andy Reid is. That's one thought. A secondary thought as well could be, what if the Washington Commanders are to get rid of Ron Rivera after this season? Bieniemy could be the next man up if he's already in the building. Potentially. But I don't know. It's a very risky move. It's a very, I'm going to go out and bet on myself type of move, because you very well could just continue to be the offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs, who just won the Super Bowl, and you played a large part in the reason why this team just won the Super Bowl, and run it back next year and try and do it again. You very well could do that. But instead, he's taking that lateral move to the Commanders in an attempt or a chase to chase something a little bit bigger. It's a very unique situation in Kansas City now. You need to appoint somebody new to be the offensive coordinator, and it needs to be somebody that Andy Reid trusts, because you have to imagine there is a significant level of trust between Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy. And now we shift gears looking towards the Philadelphia Eagles. Shane Steichen, offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles, who took over play calling duties, I believe it was halfway through last season. He is now the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. Excuse me, I got a little bit of a cold, so I'm losing my voice a little bit, stumbling over my words at times. But Shane Steichen is going to be the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts now. I think this is a grand slam hire, and I think it tells you a lot about what the Colts are going to be doing. The Colts are going to look to resemble the Eagles in a sense. And I think that's a great move. You have a guy like Michael Pittman who can be that deep threat, go out and get you 40, 50 yards on a single play kind of guy, a jump ball receiver almost. You have a dominant running back in Jonathan Taylor behind a great offensive line, eerily similar to the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line. This offensive line is very highly paid. They underperformed this year. They got back on the right track. If they can get their feet right and get going in the right direction, this offensive line for the Colts is one of the best in football. So I think it's very exciting and very promising if you're a Colts fan. And if you're the Indianapolis Colts, I think, Jim Irsay just he said at a press conference the other day, which I saw the video of press conference in the tweet. He said, that Alabama guy looks really good, talking about Bryce Young. But Colts fans, I hate to say it, but here's where you're going to go with the quarterback position, I think. If you draft a quarterback in the first round early, you will be drafting Will Levis. Will Levis, the guy of Kentucky, his comp is a Josh Allen-esque player, which I think Will Levis could be a good player. He'll need some time, similar to Josh Allen, but he could work. But a guy that also would keep on your short list of quarterbacks that you could expect potentially going to Indianapolis is a man of Hendon Hooker out of Tennessee. Very similar to Jalen Hurts. You would draft him in the second round. Athletic, big arm, can throw with the best of them, can run with the best of them. And I'd be really excited to see Hendon Hooker in that offensive system. Will Levis could also succeed very well. But I think if you're the Colts, you're going after one of those two guys now. And if you're an Indianapolis Colts fan, I don't know what you're thinking. You might be sighing in your car right now. You might be really upset in your car right now. You could be extremely happy. I'm not sure. But if I were you, I would be pumped up. I would be super excited for this offseason. I'd be super excited for the next NFL season. There's a little over 200 days till football's back, but I'd be pumped up because you're going to be getting a great coach who knows what they're doing, and you also have a high draft pick as well, and you're giving your new quarterback, a guy who's your coach, who believes in you and wants to develop you. You're not going to be walking into another season with a veteran quarterback who's kind of a plug-and-play, hope for the best, like Phillip Rivers, Matt Ryan, Carson Wentz. Nothing's wrong with those guys. They were all great players in their own right. It just didn't work in Indianapolis for some reason. But nonetheless, Indianapolis Colts fans, rejoice. It's now 4:30. We're going to take a quick break, send you off into the 4:30. We'll be back here about 4:33, take a 2 to 3 minute break, play some tunes, give you guys a song, maybe a song or two. We'll be back here in a few minutes. Stay with us here on We Sign 91.5 FM, Richmond's Public Radio. 105 FM. I'm Tyler Smith, your host of Keeping It Real with Tyler Smith. It is 4:35 on Friday, February 17th, live on We Side 101.5 Richmond's Public Radio. We just got done talking about the Super Bowl, the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl 38-35 over the Philadelphia Eagles, the stories surrounding that big game. Seeing now both coordinators for the Philadelphia Eagles have taken on new roles within the NFL. Jonathan Gannon, the coordinator of the defensive side of things in Philadelphia, is now the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, where Kyler Murray plays quarterback. Then you also have head coach Shane Steichen taking over the local Indianapolis head coaching position for the Colts. And you also have Eric Bieniemy taking a lateral move, surprisingly a shocking move that developed just over the last recent hours of late last night into early morning today, to become the coordinator of the offensive side of things in Washington for the Commanders under head coach Ron Rivera. And now we have a lot more going on. You know, the NFL offseason heats up a lot right about now. Lots of trade rumors are swirling as we lead up to the NFL draft. Soon enough, the NFL Combine will be taking place. Then we'll be doing pro days and much more. And we'll be getting a lot more into these deep dives, talking about mock drafts and things of that nature as the weeks progress. But kind of the big story as of right now is quarterback Derek Carr being released from the Oakland Raiders previously, but now the Las Vegas Raiders are the current. Derek Carr is now an unrestricted free agent. So what does that mean? Is kind of crucial in a sense. Free agency has not started yet, but since Derek Carr was under contract and got cut, he can sign whenever he would like, which is extremely, extremely interesting. You might be asking why Derek Carr being available now is so interesting. It allows him to choose where he wants to go before everything happens. And it also allows teams to plan. Free agency normally won't be happening until much closer to the draft. So that's significant time down the road. What's nice about the opportunity to sign Derek Carr right now is the fact that when you can sign Derek Carr right now, you don't have to worry about trying to draft another quarterback. You don't have to worry about signing another quarterback in free agency or scouting. You know what direction your team's going in right away. And the New York Jets are the front runners for Derek Carr at this moment. Derek Carr, probably going to go to the Jets, a team I think he fits in very nicely. And the reason why I think he fits very nicely in New York is that team is surrounded by a lot of youth. They did a terrific job this year with subpar quarterback play, I have to say. Mike White, Joe Flacco, and Zach Wilson all playing this year. No disrespect to any of those guys, but they're not Derek Carr. Zach Wilson, you know, the New York Jets aren't throwing in the towel yet on him. They're going to keep him around, but they think he needs to ride the bench a little bit and learn from a veteran quarterback in Derek Carr. As well, the New York Jets also think they have the ability to compete right away if they sign Derek Carr right now. And I think they're pretty accurate with that statement. Depending on how things shake up with Derek Carr at quarterback, you know, the ceiling for that Jets team very well could be an AFC Championship game. I think they very well can make the AFC Championship game, depending on how things shake out, obviously. I don't think they're going to beat the Bengals or the Chiefs, maybe even the Bills, a team in their own division. But if you have a guy like Derek Carr playing quarterback for you, it gives you a much more significant chance to compete, which is all the Jets are looking for. They want to be able to make the playoffs, get there, and see what happens. And I think if you sign Derek Carr and get Derek Carr to play quarterback for you, that's the exact chance that you have, which is crucial. Derek Carr raises the level. When you sign a veteran quarterback who's been to the playoffs, who knows what he's doing, who knows how to lead a team and be a captain of a team, it really shifts the mindset, changes the approach of everyone in the building. It changes a lot in New York. If you're a Jets fan, this is probably going to be the best team that you've really had since the Mark Sanchez days. And that's a flash in the past. The last time the Jets were that good, I was in grade school. And that's going back. And it's going way back. Thinking about that. Thinking about the days of the butt fumble with Mark Sanchez. Your head coach of that time, Rex Ryan, is on TV working for ESPN. Not coaching anymore. But there are rumors he might be stepping back into the coaching ranks with the Denver Broncos, potentially. And as we look back, as we mentioned a moment ago, it's kind of developing now. We're seeing some notifications, some stories leaking out here on Twitter now and NFL Now and so forth. The Commanders are going to close on that deal with Bieniemy tonight. And Matt Nagy, the quarterback's coach, offensive coordinator, previously for the Bears, head coach of the Bears, who just really ran a mediocre offense with a man named Mitch Trubisky in Chicago, might be the next coordinator for the Chiefs as he tries to resurrect and save his career. But there's a lot of question marks in this offseason. If Derek Carr ends up going to the New York Jets, we obviously knew the Raiders' quarterback position was going to be open. But who steps into the role? Now it's confirmed. Could it be Aaron Rodgers? A lot of people have been rumoring that. I'm not too sure if it's going to happen, but it could. I say that the two most likely guys for that Raiders job are probably Jimmy Garoppolo and Aaron Rodgers. I think it makes sense for either of those guys to end up there. Jimmy Garoppolo makes sense. He was under McDaniels before, succeeded with him in New England, and could move and make a lateral move and find some success as quarterback for the Raiders and get a starting job. Or you're going to have Aaron Rodgers team up with Devontae Adams. And they're best friends. They're good buddies. That's his quarterback, Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers. That's their quarterback. That's my wide receiver. Very good relationship there. Had lots of success in Green Bay. And then the carousel keeps going. And this Derek Carr move is just the first domino of the quarterback carousel we'll be seeing this offseason. Because it starts from there. Now you have the Tampa Bay job open. What does Tampa Bay do with Tom Brady out of the building? If Aaron Rodgers leaves, obviously Jordan Love steps up to the plate. And then we have some more names out there. Taylor Heineke, Baker Mayfield. Do the Bears? What's been developing now? The Chicago Bears might trade Justin Fields. Yes, you heard me. I know I've mentioned it before on this program multiple times that I think it would be a very silly move, but you could reason it. The Bears might trade Justin Fields. And it hurts me to say this, but you could definitely argue it, and there's situations where it makes sense to trade him. When you trade Justin Fields, you're going to get a lot in return, and the coaches for the Bears are going to reset their kind of contract life. They're going to stay holding on to their jobs for a bit longer, and they might be looking at their team saying, listen, we're a whole lot more than a one draft choice in the first round away from being able to compete. This team, we need a lot. And you could trade Justin Fields and get a lot, and also take a young quarterback who could be the face of the franchise still in Bryce Young or somebody at that number one overall selection. And the Carolina Panthers are aggressive. They're paying a ton of money to several head coaches who they fired. They're paying a lot of money to several quarterbacks who they've released and traded. The Panthers want to find a success, and their owner might give up the franchise for a quarterback. It's going to be a wild, crazy, and ridiculous offseason. And we're just getting started. Because really, You have this head coaching cycle thing that goes on the week before the Super Bowl, but then it really steps up into another level right after the Super Bowl ends, because typically, or Super Bowl and championship weekend, because you have some of the best coordinators in the league still coaching, obviously, because they're coaching some of the best teams in the league. And now that the head coaching carousel is done, the quarterback carousel begins next. And I think that's what we're going to spend a lot of time covering on our next episode next week. We'll be talking quarterback carousel, free agency carousel, and much more. But as I mentioned earlier on, I got to get out of here early. I know we normally run this 4 to 6, but I got to get out of here early. I got to get ready and take care of some things for the Earlham College men's basketball game tonight, taking on the Transylvania Pioneers coming up from Lexington, Kentucky. Earlham College senior night here. We're doing the play-by-play live for Earlham College Athletics. So if you want to listen in, look at over there. Go to EarlhamCollegeQuakers.com, Earlham College Athletics. Hit men's basketball and watch the live stream. And you'll be listening to me call basketball all night long. But until next time we sigh 91.5 FM, Richmond's public radio, listener supported. We sigh 91.5 FM. I'm Tyler Smith, host of Keeping It Real with Tyler Smith. It's been a pleasure. Enjoy your Friday night, afternoon. Take care. Much love. Thank you for watching.